Hello, this is Tech Happy Life with Dr. Mike Brooks. In today's episode, I'm going to cover a question that I get asked frequently when I present, and it's very important for your child's development, and it's this: at what age should I get my child a smartphone? Now, I cover this topic in my new book, Tech Generation: Raising Balanced Kids in a Hyper-Connected World, but I want to cover it here for you today. Now, getting kids a smartphone is such an important decision because once they get it, they'll have access to all sorts of things. Despite your best efforts to limit what they're able to access, kids can get exposed to all sorts of content on smartphones. It's a gateway to a vast world out there full of all sorts of things that young eyes shouldn't see, so we want to be careful and try to shield them from this until they're a little older and more mature to make more judicious decisions. Now, it's important to distinguish a want versus a need because our kids, of course, will want a smartphone as soon as they can get one, but that doesn't mean they really need it. And once you give them a smartphone, it's very difficult to take it back. It's the genie's out of the bottle. So that's why we want to be so careful on the front end of when we give them that smartphone. So I want to make a few caveats first before I give you an answer to this question of at what age should I get my child a smartphone. So one of the caveats is there's no magical answer that a child turns a certain age and suddenly they're responsible enough to handle a smartphone. So we all know there are some 10-year-olds who are way more responsible than some 20-year-olds. So that's one big caveat. There's a lot of variability here in when a child is ready for a smartphone. That being said, if you had to pin me down on what age seems to be appropriate for the responsibilities of a smartphone, I'd say sometime in middle school. Ideally, it's more like 7th or 8th grade, and this is because, one, kids are more mature at that age than when they're younger overall, and then also in their lives, they have more going on, more activities and things like that. So they might need a smartphone to communicate with drop off and pick up and coordinating things with friends. And a lot of their friends have smartphones at this point. So they start getting left out in a very real way if they're not able to keep up with their friends. You might have heard of the Wait Till 8th campaign, and that was started by a group of moms here in Austin, Texas. The idea here was to hold off until kids are in 8th grade to get them smartphones and to get a community of people agreeing to that, because if you only have half of the 8th graders agreeing, it causes problems. In one presentation I was giving, a parent came up to me afterwards and said, "Oh yeah, Wait Till 8, I got that one." I was like, I think it's Wait Till 8th as in 8th grade, not 8 years old. So that's an important one to keep in mind. We're talking middle school here. So some things to keep in mind when getting them a smartphone or a cell phone. One, it doesn't have to be a smartphone. It could be a dumb phone or a flip phone, a phone with limited functionality, and these still exist out there. So they have, what's most important is they can make calls and text, and you can communicate, because as kids are getting older, you're giving them more autonomy, they're on their own a little bit more, and it's important that they have ways of contacting you. And with one of these phones with limited functionality, our kids are still able to text and interact with their friends, but then they don't have social media and all the things that come with that, the drama that can play out on social media. And another thing that's good about the starter phone is it's testing the waters. If they can demonstrate that they can handle such a phone in a responsible way, then eventually they can level up to a smartphone. Now, when they get the phone, whether it's a smartphone or a dumb phone, it's important to go over some do's and don'ts with them on the front end, so they're clear about what the expectations are. And this is a dialogue. It shouldn't all be top down. We should be discussing these things with our child, and that they understand that there are consequences of misuse. And those consequences usually should be something involving losing access to that phone for a period of time. That is a logical consequence to misusing the privilege of the phone. So when you're getting your child his or her first phone, whether it's a smartphone or a dumb phone, one thing that can be helpful is letting them know that you're lending them this phone, that it's not theirs permanently, that you're giving them this phone based on their responsible use of it, and if they don't use it responsibly, then they could lose some access. Another thing related to this that can be helpful is that they pay a certain percentage of their phone bill each month, because this gives them skin in the game and a sense of responsibility. To summarize, to answer the question of at what age should I get my child a smartphone, I will say sometime in middle school. 7th or 8th grade I think is preferable because they're a little older and hopefully more mature. And it doesn't have to be all or nothing. It doesn't even have to be a smartphone. It could be a dumb phone or a starter phone that you get them, and that as they demonstrate responsible use, then they could graduate to a smartphone. This has been Tech Happy Life with Dr. Mike Brooks. Thanks so much for joining me today, and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode.